Hey, can our Zoom callers hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Are you able to hear me as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, can you unmute and say something really quick, please?
Hello, Dan. Did you hear me all right?
Okay. 1 second. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, but I think it's on our end.
Dan?
Tom, I could hear you. This is Jordan with applicants team. Can you hear?
Jordan, I just heard what you were saying, but I can't hear anything from the room, from the planning auditorium.
I did not hear from them either.
I'm not hearing from them either, Tom.
That was the same.
Maybe we should have a meeting amongst ourselves.
Okay.
Good.
So do we need to let Dan know that we can't hear? Dan, we cannot hear. Okay.
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Now I can. Tom, can you hear him?
I heard what he said. I heard him just ask you that question. So yes.
Perfect. Okay. We're good now.
I could hear as
Sounds like.
well.
Okay,
Perfect.
there we
Thank
go.
you.
Commissioner Salgin?
Present.
Barton? West? Garcia?
Present.
Van Essen? Collins?
Thank you. And now let's take a look at the minutes. Did everybody get an opportunity to look at the minutes? Any corrections?
Yes, and I would make a motion for one correction, please, as regards to the gas station upon which we did not have a second. And so it failed for lack of a second. The notes from the meeting state that I made, that I asked for the vote, and it was actually Commissioner Barton that did. If we would correct that in the notes, I would appreciate it.
Good. Do we need a second on that?
Yes.
I'll second that correction.
Thank you. All right, and now our new system, any discussion? Then I push the vote button.
Okay, did we have a vote there?
I'll make a motion to approve with the adjustment.
Okay, oh, then we need a second for that. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you.
Now,
There we go. Did you start the vote there, Dave?
I did, and it says mover.
that would be me. Or do I have to click that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought it already.
No.
Very good. Motion passes. Minutes are accepted. Ken, any changes for the agenda today?
No, Mr. Chairman, no changes.
Thank you. Public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address any matter that is not on the agenda. Typically, there's a 5 limit, but anything we do has had been sent in. Is there any item that came in that is to be addressed that is not on our agenda today, Ken?
We don't have any, no.
What's that?
No comments that are,
No comments? Okay, very good. All right, then we're going to move on into our meeting procedure. What will happen is I will explain the meeting agenda item. Planning staff will give a project description and the staff report. Then planning staff will make the staff recommendation on the item. I will then open up for the public hearing and inform the audience that those wishing to speak on the item are to approach the podium and state their name and addresses. Because we're not able to have an audience, what we'll be doing is taking emails or letters that have been delivered to City Hall. I know we've already got a significant amount of them, and we will look first at the applicant's testimony, then the proponent's testimony, including written testimony, the opponent's testimony, including written testimony, then the applicant may rebut testimony of opposition. At that point, I will close the public hearing and the Planning Commission will discuss this item. No further public testimony can be taken except that the chairman may request answers from the commission. Planning Commission will act on this item. After each item, the chairman informs the audience of the right to appeal. Here is the right to appeal. You disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission, you have the right to appeal. Only persons who have participated in the review process by submitting written or oral testimony or by attending the public hearing may appeal. To preserve your appeal rights, be sure to print your name and address in the attendance sheet in the hall, which people cannot do. But if you did send in a letter or an email, you have the right to appeal the Planning Commission's decision. Make your appeal at the Planning Department office at City Hall during normal business hours. That's it. Thank you guys very much for putting through that. And let's go ahead and move in. Ken, item number 1.
all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. First item up here in front of you tonight is for a variance application located at 1202 Robert Avenue. Rob, if you could go up on the screen with with that. Basically, the applicant here is requesting a variance of the city's required makeup area for a custom home being proposed to be built on the subject property, which is popping up on the screen now, at 1202 Robert Avenue. Actually, the property does face Doak Boulevard, and it will be provided a new address upon construction, which will be a Doak Boulevard address, but currently it is 1202 Robert Avenue. The property is zoned as a R1C, which is a single-family custom residential lot. And so the standard setbacks for those lots within our municipal code is for a front setback is a 30-foot setback from the property line with an option to encroach into that 30-foot setback by 5 feet for no more than 50% of the house frontage. This actually provides for some architectural interest of homes being allowed articulation, allowing some articulation for the front of the house. See if I can get to the next slide here. Possibly. Rob, can you click over the next slide? The rear setback is 30 feet for R1C lots with an option to encroach into that 30-foot rear yard setback to within 15 feet along the back property line, so long as that area being encroached upon is made up elsewhere on the lot and it doesn't encroach more than 30% of the required rear yard. Interior side yard setbacks are 10 feet and street side setbacks for the R1C are 30 feet. The applicant has designed a 3,120 square foot home. There we go. The elevation is up on the screen for you. Single story custom home for the lot. This is kind of unusual shaped lot. The proposed custom home encroaches into the required 30-foot rear yard setback to the 15 feet, which is allowed by the code. However, the required makeup area does not fall within the rear half of the lot as required by the code. So up on the screen right now, you're seeing the floor plan. Let's go to the next slide. There we go. So as you're seeing on the screen here, the area of the house encroaching into the 15-foot rear yard setback areas is the red hatch mark to the rear of the lot. The rear half of the lot is that gray line that kind of diagonally runs through the lot. So typically the makeup area has to be within that rear half of that lot. This applicant actually has a lot of space for makeup area. This is such an unusual shape of a lot. They have more than enough makeup area space. It's just not within the rear yard area. It's more their side yard area. So what they're asking for, the variance they're asking for this evening is that the makeup area for their encroachment be allowed to be made up elsewhere on the lot besides just the rear yard area. So they are encroaching into the back of that lot by about 1,720 square feet, roughly 1,730 square feet. And they have about 4,000 square feet of makeup area on their lot, which is the green hatched area. So they have ample enough makeup area. It's like I said, just not located within the rear half of the lot. So as with any variance in public hearing, all the neighbors within 500 feet of the property were sent notices of this public hearing tonight concerning the proposed variance. And we received no letters back from any neighbors over there in regards to the project one way or the other. So at this time, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ken. Commissioners, any questions for Ken at this time?
Ken, I'm not clear on how many, so the rear yard setback is how far is it going to be from the fence? The back?
15 feet.
15 feet, okay.
15, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Anything else, Deborah? Okay, any other questions? Is the applicant available to speak? So the applicant is not able to speak, and I'm assuming we have received no letters. Is that correct on this, Ken?
Correct. We've got no letters one way or the other with this project.
Okay, so there's none in favor, none in opposition. We have no rebuttal. So the public hearing on this section will be closed. The commission can now discuss this item. Thoughts?
I personally see no problem with it. I think it is a weird shaped lot. It's a large lot. And it looks like he's going to put a real nice house there. And so, unless somebody else says something, I'm ready to make a motion.
I have one thought.
Okay.
So he's got a regular setback in front. It is an unusual lot, but he's got a very narrow backyard of 15 feet. What if we offer an option to also move his house 5 foot forward? Currently, that's a 30-foot setback on the front, correct, Ken?
Yes, currently our code is a 30-foot setback, and our code does allow for a 5-foot encroachment into that 30-foot setback for half the frontage of the house. So parts of the house could be at 25 feet.
And that would allow him a 20-foot backyard, which might be a little bit more convenient for him.
The applicant now, I think, might be available.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, let's back up.
Maybe he wants a little backyard.
He might.
Well, I'm curious what that would do to the aesthetics of the neighborhood.
Yeah, it does put
If
the
it's
house
moving it
relatively close to the neighbor's pool in the back and all of that.
Well, I'm wondering what it does to the aesthetics of the front yards of the neighborhood, moving the house 5 feet forward. So is that going to be the only house that's 5 feet forward with?
Yes, I think Ken could answer that better, though.
So there's only houses to the west of that property. So if you get on the other side of Robert Avenue, it's to the west. I think most of those are at 30 feet. They did have an option to take advantage of that 5-foot varied setback as well. So some of those might be at 25 feet. If you move this house forward or allowed them to go forward another 5 feet, they could be at some of the parts of the house could be at 20 feet. But if you look at the floor plan of the house, it does look like the garage sits back quite a way. So there's not a whole lot of concerns with the driveway being too short for such a home. Will it look a whole lot different? It'll look a little bit different. I mean, a lot of our houses, we vary within subdivisions by at least 3 feet between the houses. So you don't have everything just kind of lined up in a row. They have some variation in between them. 5 feet is not a whole lot of distance. I mean, if you're going to probably notice it, it would be something greater than 5 feet that you would notice. I mean, if it was a 10-foot difference or so, but yeah, you certainly might. I mean, it's going to look just a tad bit different maybe.
It's an option.
If he wants that, maybe they don't want it though.
He may not want it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think we force him to move the house forward.
I agree. We just allow that option if you're acceptable to that. George, any thoughts?
Well, just going back, this is single story, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 15 feet to the back fence isn't that big of an issue to me. If they were asking for 2-story, that would be something, but I don't have a problem with it.
Mitzi, are we able to pull up the applicant? The applicant, if you can hear me, would you like to say anything about your project?
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
There he is.
Now we
There we
can.
go.
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
We can.
Yeah.
thank-
No, pretty much. I mean, it's pretty much what I wrote down. I just want to build a house there. You know, the property's an eyesore, you know, the land. So I just want to see if I could get a variance. I mean,
Is this going to be your own personal home or are you building a spec home?
a spec home.
Okay. That's quite a spec home.
Yeah, it's a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, okay. We talked a little bit about, Dave suggested that maybe we allow the house to be moved forward so the backyard would be bigger. Are you pretty much set that you want the backyard to be 15 feet? Is that?
No, no. Actually, I would like a bigger backyard if that's possible.
Okay. Okay, so that's something that we could maybe put in with the approval where it could be allowed to move it 5 feet forward if you choose to.
Okay. No, I mean, I would. I mean,
We're not going to make you do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, other questions for the applicant?
No, not here.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to say about the home?
No, that's pretty much it.
Very good. All right, thank you. Then we will go ahead and let you go, and we will close the public hearing portion. And then we can continue discussions as commissioners. Any other thoughts on this project?
I've got nothing. I mean, I drive down Robert, headed towards Doak all the time, and I think this will be a good fill-in for that spot.
Agree with you, Mike, completely.
I think you were going to make a motion.
Yes, so I will make a motion that we approve the variance request for the 1202 Robert Avenue based on the findings and subject to the conditions in the staff report, and that we also add in there the option for moving the house forward closer to the street 5 feet.
I'll second that.
Second. And the motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, sir. Best wishes as you build out your home.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, to each and every one of you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
All right, Kenny, next item on the agenda, please.
Yes, so this is the River Road Gas Station Convenience Market Project. This item was renoticed and is obviously back before the commission this evening because at the July 20th Planning Commission meeting, the commission did not take a formal action on the proposed application one way or the other. So here's kind of how this process will go this evening. With this project, staff will present some updates to the staff report and the project. The staff report pretty much remained unchanged, except for we added a little bit of a history of the site so you guys can know when it was annexed to the city and kind of some iterations it went through to get to the state it is in now. And we also had some more attachments that were attached to the staff report. So I will go through, at least bring your attention to those that you had in your packet that came out on Friday. After I do the presentation there, the chairman will open up the public hearing. The applicant will be given an opportunity to make a presentation to the commission regarding the project. I do believe they have a representative for the applicant on Zoom for that. Staff will then present a summary of the comment letters we received to date. I will not summarize the ones that were in the staff report. I think we received 29 letters in opposition and 2 in favor when we released the staff report when that was released on Friday. So they are all part of the staff report and part of the record. I will not go through those, but I will go through the ones that we received after we released the staff report on Friday. The applicant will have an opportunity to rebut any comments that they feel necessary. The chairman shall ask the commissioners if they have any further questions of the applicant. And then upon no further questions of the applicant, the chairman shall close the public hearing and bring it back to staff. And then the commission can deliberate on the project. So with the history of the site, just something really quick here. Basically, the site was originally annexed into the city of Ripon in November of 2000 as part of the Chesapeake Development Project, which annexed about 225 acres into the city of Ripon. As part of that annexation, development plans were approved to zone and construct the following. About 16.6 acres of that annexation were approved for Parkview Elementary School. About 11.5 acres were zoned for Chesapeake Landing, the senior development. 10.5 acres were zoned for community commercial, which was on the corner of River Road in North Ripon, where the project site sits currently. 3.1 acres were zoned for high density, which is the Ripon Gardens 1 apartment project. 5 acres were zoned for a park expansion off of Bosch Drive. We had about a 1 acre city well site on the corner of River Road and Fulton Avenue. And then there was about 177 acres, which were developed as low density housing, which Meritage Homes built out there. Additionally, there was a lot of improvements that came with that development agreement and projects. Some of the larger kind of improvements that were planned during that development was the extension of River Road from North Ripon Road to Jacktone Road as a 6-lane regional expressway. Long-term plans for River Road is to extend this regional road westerly to connect with State Route 99 at a future planned, there's a future planned interchange at some point in the future where it will connect between Ripon and Manteca. And development and extension of Fulton Avenue as a 4-lane facility from Wilma Overpass to River Road. Many of folks, if they were here before any of that was expanded, the only way into town from River Road, where River Road dead-ended into North Ripon Road, was to come down North Ripon Road and down Miljo and then over the Wilma Overpass. Fulton Avenue was non-existent, so that road was put in and extended all the way out to the new River Road. So in March of 2016, JKB Living entered into a development agreement with the city of Ripon, so 16 years after the property was annexed into the city, to develop the entire originally zoned community commercial site. So it was approximately 10.5 acres, and it was zoned for community commercial. Community commercials, more sites like the Save Mart Shopping Center, that in comparison is about 10 acres over there. So that's the size of the planned commercial site that was set aside originally. So JKB Living entered into a development agreement to actually produce and construct a mixed-use development project. So 6 acres of that 10.5 acres was rezoned for high-density apartments, and a little over 4 acres, or roughly around there, was set aside for neighborhood commercial. As part of their development agreement with the city of Ripon, only a portion of the building permits would be issued for the high-density apartment complex until at least 50% of the neighborhood commercial development commenced on the commercial site. So as they were building the apartments, some of the commercial buildings got moving. The Fina restaurant started construction. Actually, the strip center started construction. So they were able to pull and get all their high-density building permits because they had started and finished some of the commercial projects for that site. In November of 2016, a major site plan application was approved by the Planning Commission. Like I said, that was in 2016 for the Fina restaurant and the strip center, which have been finished up and have quite a few different businesses within them. On July 20th, the Ripon Planning Commission reviewed a proposed gas station convenience market project for the last remaining commercial site, which is on the corner of North Ripon and River Road. At that meeting, the Planning Commission received testimony from the applicant and the public, however, did not take action on the proposed project that evening. Therefore, is why it is back here in front of us this evening, so you guys can deliberate, take some more testimony on it, and vote for the project one way or the other. So that kind of goes through the update for the staff report. There were some other attachments that were included in the staff report that were not part of the original development submittal. They did provide some elevations for the canopy, for the fueling station canopy. So they provided elevation drawings for that. There's a letter that was placed into record here from the police chief and his correspondence at the last meeting that he had. There's a diagram of Ripon's growth boundaries. So obviously Ripon has a general plan that goes out to the year 2040. In that general plan, we have to plan for future growth. And you can see kind of in that area where the future growth is going to be at some point in the future, and what that means for this site, or where this site is located within proximity of where Ripon's growth will eventually expand to in some future point. There's also a fact sheet that was actually submitted by the applicant, going through just some facts for the project that they submitted for your benefit. And also within the staff report, we had the comment letters that were received prior to the release of the staff report. So you had 29 letters against and 2 in favor that were included as part of your staff report. Those are the ones we will not be going through later during the public comment period, since you guys have had an opportunity to review those and they are on record. So that's all I have this evening for you, Commission, and I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and we can kind of step through the rest of our process this evening.
Thank you, Ken. So let's go ahead and open the public hearing session on this agenda item. We'll go ahead and open it up and give the applicant first. We'll give them the opportunity to make a presentation to the commission.
So I'm assuming that I have the opportunity, there we go. I have the opportunity to speak to the commission, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is John Anderson, JB Anderson Land Use Planning. My business address is 139 South Stockton Avenue here in Ripon, California. I am the land use planner that's worked with JKB Living on this project that Ken was talking about dating back to 2016. And obviously I've worked on a number of projects in and around Ripon, including, the developments around the Jacktone Interchange and other projects. I'm here tonight representing the property owner, who's JKB Living, and then the applicant, who's RJM Inc. And the applicant's representative, the broker that's working with the applicant, is Jordan Amarat, and the applicant, the buyer of this lot, is unable to attend tonight. Apparently he had a family emergency and he's up in Redding, California as we speak. So I know that Jordan wants to talk a little bit about the operations of this commercial venture at the site. And I'm not sure if we have the architect, Manuel McGowan, available or not. Jordan will talk about that. But then after Jordan talks about the operation itself, I'll kind of go over, some of the history on this project property, and then kind of where we're at, and kind of make reference back to your staff report that Ken put together, and then of course the necessary findings that the commission, you as the commission, ultimately need to take as it relates to the site plan review. So Jordan, I'll go ahead and mute myself so you can talk about the operations.
Thank you, John, for the introduction, and thank you, Planning Commission and City staff, for allowing us to meet with you tonight. As John mentioned, my name is Jordan Amarant, and I'm the listing agent for the property, as well as the applicant's representative for the purchase of the property. And I have a long history with the site as well, going back about 2 years. And the architect is not able to attend tonight as he is in other meetings, but I have the site plans and am familiar with them and happy to speak to them. And the applicant also wanted me to share his apologies for not being in attendance, but he did have a death in the family this morning. Unexpected, but it did require him to drive up to Redding. So as we speak, he's in the vehicle getting up there to his family. So he did want to apologize for that and appreciates your understanding. Regarding the site plan, I believe Planning Commission should have a copy of this. And we also had drawings made of the canopy for the gas station, which will be architecturally designed and flows very well with the rest of the project. Additionally, the elevations for the convenience store and quick serve food location that'll be housed there is designed to also meet the architectural standards and to match what is already built there, known as Ripon Terraza. Additionally, the developer JKB Living has CC&Rs in place covering this parcel being sold, and those CC&Rs will govern the future operating of the property, and that it maintains a certain beautified element throughout the time, and that the architecture will again match what he's already built there. So I don't know if we're doing any questions at this time, but whenever that time does arise, I'd be happy to dig in further on any questions.
Jordan, let us continue with our presentation, and if the commissioners have questions, they'll ask through the chairman of any additional information that we can provide. Thank you.
Thank you.
My understanding behind this application is last time it came to you as the commission, there was some confusion as to actually what happened. My understanding is there was a motion that was made. That motion was not seconded, and there was never another motion brought before you. So in essence, the Planning Commission did not render a decision that either for or against the project that would allow either the project to move forward or for us as the applicant to put together an appropriate appeal, off the city council. So that's why this matter is being brought back before you tonight as a commission. And we appreciate it. I'm sorry that Gary Barton's not able to join us tonight. I understand that Mike Garcia as the alternative is sitting in his place. That's wonderful that City of Ripon has that as an opportunity as an alternative. So we've got 5 commissioners. That's wonderful. This property has got a lot of history. In 2016, we went through some of the commissioners there, George and others are aware, a lot of discussion about the conversion of this 10-acre commercial site down to 4 acres and then the promotion for additional apartment development. And there was a lot of discussion, neighborhood meetings, a lot of opposition. And quite frankly, in the end of the day, if you look at the quality of the project that's been built by James Brenda and his organization, I can't believe that there's anybody that lives immediately adjacent to the project or is aware of the project that would object to the quality of the effort that's been put forth. Bringing in a quality vendor like John Searle with Finas has been a godsend, I would believe, in that area of Ripon. James in no way wants to hinder his investment or to distract from what's being presented there. The effort that Jordan and his client have put together with this architecture is to blend within the area. A lot of the questions that are being raised, quite frankly, are the same types of questions that we dealt with back in 2016 when we were talking about a conversion of this property, which was neighbor community commercial C2 to C1 and reducing it from 10 acres to 4 acres. So a lot of discussion about River Road. What is River Road? I mean, Ken went over that. I mean, it's planned and it's in a 6-lane expressway. A lot of concern about the stop about. What's going on with the stop about? Ken can probably fill in more about the latest on the stop about, but it is what it is. The traffic volumes haven't reached a point where it's critical. At some point, the city is going to end up doing something at the intersection. I believe it's a full signalized intersection. When that happens, what's the trigger? The city controls that. As it relates to development, the developers pay impact fees, and the city controls as to actually when those regional improvements are installed. And again, Ken may be able to respond to that in more detail. On page 101 in your staff report is a letter from the police chief acknowledging the concerns that he's had, acknowledging that the applicant has revised his application to address not all the comments, not all the concerns, but a majority of the concerns that the police department had with the operation that's there. That's very, very important. On page 103 of your staff report is kind of a list of kind of some questions that have been asked, and then some backup information. And quite frankly, what's important for the commission to understand is this is a site plan review process that we're going through. The property is zoned C1. In the C1 zoning, starting on page 107, I've highlighted service stations and gas stations are permitted uses in the C1 zone. On page 108 of your staff report, convenience markets are an allowable use in the C1 zone. Those types of uses are allowable uses in this zone. We're going through a site plan review process to look at all aspects of the development, massing, circulation, lighting, traffic, landscaping, massing, orientation of the structure, the building to others. All these types of things go into the design before anybody starts construction. And George knows this. This is a long process that just doesn't happen overnight. And unfortunately, some of the discussion, some of the letters, most of the letters, quite frankly, that have been presented in opposition to this project, what we're suggesting relate directly to a use, which again is a permitted use, or directly related to the condition of River Road or the route or the stop about at River and North Ripon. Again, those conditions have been set a long time ago. We're not altering those. We're adhering to those standards. So from a land use planning perspective, I'm a little bit confused by the arguments that are being made by the opposition, but it is what it is. On page 110 and 111 of your staff report are pictorial exhibits that were part of a development agreement that was executed between my client, JKB Living, and the city of Ripon as it related to the ultimate development of this property, which included Ripon Gardens, 2 apartments, as well as this 4-acre commercial property. It was conceptual. JKB has a performance obligation to build and to occupy, these commercial properties as a net result of them or the city agreeing to allow James Brenda, JKB Living, to build the second phase of the apartments. We've done that. We're doing that. We're continuing to do that. The development agreement didn't necessarily say, we're going to put a gas station here. Quite frankly, when we did this in 2016, we weren't sure exactly what we were going to have in here. But we had a list of uses that were under the C1 zone that we believe are allowable uses. So in essence, this process that we're going through is really focused more on the architectural elements, the site plan elements, the massing, the relationship of this structure with the adjacent structure. So that's really where things stand. The findings, are very similar to the findings that the city council used and made when we got the development agreement adopted back in 2016. And certainly it was part of that 2016 approval process that we went through, which was a lot of work. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of concern, most of which we were able to mitigate. I'm not going to say we mitigated everything, but most of it we were able to mitigate. And I think in the end of the day, the product that's been delivered out here is a tremendous benefit to the city of Ripon, and certainly something aesthetically that's fit together very well. The one commercial vendor that would be most impacted by this type of use, this type of application, would be John Serla with his Fina restaurant right next door. John has written a letter in approval or in support of what's being presented. John will tell you that he's actually designed that structure such that whatever would be built on this property, whether it was we don't know. We didn't know at the time. We didn't know if it was going to be an office building or a convenience store or a gas station or a car wash. It wouldn't impact his business, wouldn't adversely impact his business. Well, and then we have COVID, right? COVID's impacted these poor restaurant owners to a point where in some cases they may not come back. But John's done the best he can to survive COVID. He's done the best he can to design his project to make sure that it's sustaining, and obviously wants to continue to be able to operate within this community as long as the community will continue to support his operation. So that's kind of a little bit of history. It's important that the commission understands, where this project's been and what the role and responsibility is, for you folks, tonight as you deliberate on this site development review that's in front of you. It's a major review. It's a major review. Is Ken, as your director of community development, has the ability to make that determination. which means we can't just simply go right to a building permit. We understand that. But again, we've crafted an application we believe that meets and exceeds the criteria that's set forth by the city of Ripon. And we believe that you have the ability to make the findings that are put before you today. So we're here to answer questions that you may have relative to what's been presented to you, what we've added to the file, operationally, what Jordan may have to say. I'm not sure. We've got Mike Warda, who is our legal representative in Jordan's office. Mike may have something that he wants to, just say for the administrative record here. But in our opinion, it is really this review, this administration is really focused on the major site plan review items, and that's where we're asking you to take a look at what's been presented and then to render a decision based on the findings that's been presented. Michael, why don't you continue, and I'll mute myself.
Good. Thanks, John. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Mike Warda. My office is at 2350 West Monte Vista in Turlock. I've represented JKB on various parts of this project since it started. I just wanted to sort of remind the Commission that in 2016, I think it's Exhibit 5, A5, we attached a conceptual plan to the development agreement that actually showed a proposed gas station at this very location. It was a conceptual plan, but obviously it was there. I remember at those meetings, a lot of folks showed up and were very concerned about putting apartments there. They were concerned about putting the commercial there. And I think you see that really a wonderful project has been developed. And we've actually had people come to us and try and get similar projects built in other communities, using Ripon as an example, because it really has turned out to be pretty amazing. You're asked to make findings. And what's interesting is the way the process works here. You're asked to make findings which were essentially made as part of the development agreement process, both by this commission and by the city council. And the issues that were addressed were consistency with the general plan, and the development agreement in its language says that it conforms with the goals and policies of the city, that the plans that we have here comply with the construction standards. That's the second finding essentially you're asked to make. It results in a creation of a physical environment that's consistent with the goals of the community. That's the site suitability finding you're asked to make. That there won't be any detrimental significant detrimental impact to public health, safety, or welfare. The development agreement actually says this provides for orderly development of the project area. And finally, that it's compatible with the adjoining land uses. And the development agreement also makes that finding. The development agreement also has a provision, and the purpose of the development agreement obviously is to give developers some certainty of what they can develop, and it gives the city some certainty of what to expect from developers. And in this particular case, the development agreement indicates that if there's something that's inconsistent with ordinances or rules, that the terms of the development agreement control. And so in this particular case, it carries a lot of importance, and I ask that you look at that or consider that as part of this process. And the other thing that development agreement does say is that all permitted uses under the zoning ordinance are allowable at this location, meaning that the developer can expect that when he invests his money in this project, that anything that's identified as a permitted use in your zoning ordinance can be built. So the question before the commission tonight isn't whether or not a gas station can be built. It's really an issue of whether or not the proposed plan is consistent with the development agreement and the findings can be made. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else from Mr. Anderson's office?
That concludes our presentation at this point. We're here to answer and respond to questions that the commission has of us based on the evidence presented.
Okay.
John, can I add one more thing real quick, please? And Commissioner and members of the commission, the applicant did send me a message here, even though he's not local right now. He just wanted to share that, he has a history of successfully developing and operating gas stations locations. Currently owns and operates a Chevron in Manteca, California, and then also he owns a 48-acre farm on Austin Road, just north of Ripon, California. And he wanted to stress that, you know, he's a member of this community, and he's very highly interested in ensuring that he meets all safety requirements and is only a benefit to the city of Ripon. And so thank you for allowing me to add that.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, would we like to take a moment? We're going to have letters of opposition to this project, and then the proponent will then be allowed to rebut. Do you have any current questions that you would like to ask about what they just spoke about?
I have a couple of questions. And under our findings, we have 6 findings that we're to be looking at. And we'll get into more of this further out. You know, I was on the commission when we went over the whole apartment and the commercial complex that is there now. And I remember a lot of people were not happy this room was full. And I really felt like we were making the right decision. And now everyone's thrilled with that spot. So there is that. But I have 2 of the findings that I feel like I need an answer to before I can go forward with any kind of a decision. The first one I'm not quite 100% certain is number 3, which is the site is physically suitable for the type of development and for the intensity of development. And number 4, issuance of the permit will not be significantly detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or be injurious to the property or improvements of adjacent properties. So I don't know if you want to address those 2 findings at this point, or if that's something you want to address later, but that right now, that's my concern, those 2 findings.
If it's all right, why don't we go ahead and go into those that in favor and those in opposition, and then your office will have an opportunity to rebut and answer that, and then we ask questions after we get the rest of the public testimony. Is that acceptable?
It is with me, if that's okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up there for you guys to think about.
So as we're working forward, excellent. Thank you guys very much for your presentation. At this point, we're going to look at those who would like to speak in favor of the project. Ken, I'm aware that we believe we had 2 letters that came in that are included in our staff report. Are there any additional letters that have come in that speak in favor of the project?
No, I have no additional in favor letters.
Okay, thank you very much. Then do we have any additional letters in opposition that we did not receive copies of?
Yes, when we released the staff report, we did receive additional opposition letters from the community. And I actually put those, I summarized those letters. We will actually read the names of the people who wrote the letters. We're not going to read every single letter into record. However, they will be entered into the minutes. The actual letters will be entered into the minutes. But we'll just do a summary of those here for you guys. You did get a copy of those this evening on your desk as you sat down as well. So just in summary, we received 35 more opposition letters since the staff report went out on Friday. And we also received a petition with 39 signatures against the project as well, in opposition of the project. Just summarizing, going through the letters, we've kind of put things into some main categories here and put some numbers by how many letters address these topics. First of all, a lot of letters talked about safety. So we're talking crime, mentioning of crime in and around the site itself, also in and around the surrounding neighborhoods, homelessness, attracting of homeless, and those sorts of activities related to safety. So out of the letters that we received, we had about 21, obviously, letters that had mentioned something about that topic. Basically, there's another category put in there. It's kind of not needed. A lot of people saying too many gas stations in Ripon or within close proximity of the site. 22 letters addressed that topic. Traffic, basically related to safety. traffic safety with the roundabout or stopabout, as most people like to call it, increased traffic just in general with that use. 24 letters addressed that topic. Not complimentary, so not complimentary to other businesses in the complex. We had 9 letters addressing that. Proximity to residential, too close to single family, multifamily housing or senior community, 18 letters address that. Parkview Elementary School, so basically just being too close to a school site. We had 5 letters addressing that. Competition, competes with other businesses already in the complex. We had 2 letters that addressed that topic. And then one of the topics we put in there was environmental, so air pollution, noise pollution, lighting and glare. We did have 8 letters that addressed that topic. So those are the letters that we received, and I'm just going to go through the list of folks that submitted letters just so they know that we did receive them. I do apologize. Some of the emails did not have names signed on them, so I just kind of pulled the name off the email address, so I apologize to anyone if I don't get their name right, but it wasn't their email address that way, or if I mispronounce them. So we did get a letter from Shauna Rose, Paul Witt, Marlena Bear, John Jensen, Daljit Carr, Jim Mallett, Sam and Carla Travail, Joan Rose, Stacy Anderson, Donnie Ruan, Sean Montgomery, Savreen Dillon, Sandra Rogers, Shannon Kennedy, Karen Pryor, Raina Anaya, Dean Anaya, Karen Vogel, Ronnie Matos, John Rocks, Julie Bloxam, Joseph Francella, Carol Power, Deborah Brooks, Mallory Padilla, Terraza Market, Eleanor Padilla, Anna O'Connor, Lex Cornell, Kathy Little, Dustin Dyer from the Dyer Law Firm, Amber Trask, Norma Evans, Pam Wright, and Marsh Klippel. And then we did have a petition with 39 signatures on it that was submitted as well, that you have a copy of those. So I'm not going to read through those, but there was 39 individuals that signed that petition opposing the project as well. So that's a summary of the letters that you received. Like I said, they will be entered into the record, into the minutes.
Thank you, Ken. So that would be the stack that we found as we came in?
Yes, correct.
These are the ones that came in since, okay, excellent.
And Mr. Chairman,
So, commissioners, you have those letters all here in front of you. Any specific questions for Ken on this?
Hey, Tom, Tom, you want to say something?
yes, Mr. Chairman, if I can,
Yes, please.
if everybody can hear me. Nice to see you all. The one letter that merits some consideration and discussion is the letter from the Dyer Law Firm. And the only thing there is the contention they make that the COVID procedures that we've implemented here to conduct these meetings is not fair to those who participate. And I just want to acknowledge that staff acknowledges how difficult this process is for everybody. And what we're really trying to do here tonight is to strike a balance between the importance of public participation and public health and safety. And we're doing this at the city council level as well. So I want to acknowledge that we know that it is difficult for everybody. We appreciate everybody's forbearance on this issue, and certainly going to do the best we can to address everybody who makes comments or who have submitted comments on the record.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, let's go back to the applicant, and we now have an opportunity for you to rebut the statements of the opponents, and then we'll have commissioners have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. Mr. Anderson, is your office ready to speak again?
We most certainly are, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So the commissioners asked how they're having difficulty, or there's 2 findings that they need additional supporting evidence related to, and that's finding number 3 and finding number 4. Finding number 3 relates to physical suitability of the site as it relates to the type of development and for the intensity of development. You know, the site has been zoned and designated for commercial development. It's next to, adjacent to a major expressway that is planned to be 6 lanes. It's difficult to imagine that you would have anything other than some kind of commercial and commercial venture at this location. You're certainly not going to have a residential land use, and commercial is probably the highest and best use of this property. And a gas station at this location, if you take that into consideration in looking at either on page 102 of your staff report, or you take a look at the exhibit or map on page 113 of your staff report. I mean, Ripon it is planned to grow, both to the east and also to the north. I mean, that's, you have an adopted sphere of influence, you have a 10-year growth horizon, you have a general plan. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes many, many years. Quite frankly, I don't, the site is, in my opinion, physically suited for the type of commercial development that's being presented. There's a lot of consideration that goes into the site planning, and it in essence dictates just how large the buildings can be, how many, in this case, how many gas islands can be provided, because it's all directly related to landscaping obligations that we have to meet for the city, the parking obligations that we have to provide for, and of course the site circulation that's critical in order for all of this to work amongst themselves, amongst each other. The fourth one has to do with will not significantly be detrimental to the public health, safety, welfare, or interest to property or improvements of adjacent properties. So, both of these are subjective, no question. They're both subjective. For finding number 4, in this case, is highly regulated, not only by local government but also by state and federal laws as it relates to how do you deal with the petrochemical fuels and whatnot that are stored on the property. So I got to say there's a number of safeguards related to that would allow an individual to make that type of finding. Again, it's subjective. You have to search through the documentation that's been presented and understand, quite frankly, the types of rules and regulations that a person has to go through just to build a gas station, not only at this location but in any location. As it relates to the letters of opposition, many of the concerns that are being expressed are the same concerns that we heard back in 2016. I gotta tell you, I am surprised. I am surprised at the volume of letters, and I can't really respond to that. And I don't know what has been told to the property owners, and what story has been led. I don't know. I know that in 2016 we had a neighborhood meeting, and in that neighborhood meeting we had probably close to 60 people there at the firehouse there across the street from this property, and there was a lot of misinformation that was being presented, in that little neighborhood meeting. And it was fortunate that we had Ken Zudevart there present. And Ken didn't really want to talk at the neighborhood meeting, but there was so much misinformation. Ken was compelled to talk the truth on a couple items. So I don't know exactly what's been told to these folks. In my mind, the use of the site for a gas station convenience mart is consistent with the C1 zoning and the permitted uses that are there. And from there, it's our obligation to put together a site plan that's in architecture that's harmonious to the site, to represent studies, traffic study, which we've perfected, to represent that there's not going to be a major issue to traffic circulation in the area, and that traffic analysis accommodated this type of use and suggested that it would be appropriate. One of the other things that we're dealing with now as planners, and Ken's starting to get into it, and you will as a commission, is that, you know, we're supposed to somehow start reducing, you know, the vehicle miles that we all travel. And the way that you do that is that you provide these types of commercial service related uses in close proximity to where you live and work. By having them strung out on the other side of town, it's not necessarily a good thing, because now you're increasing, you know, the number of miles that you have to travel. The sequel evaluation that we're going to see in the future, as of July 1st of this year, is all based on vehicle miles traveled and no longer on levels of service, which at some point, I think those two things are going to collide and we're going to have some issues. But the idea is to reduce greenhouse gas effects and emissions, and to promote more of these types of mixed use developments where you have commercial, residential, and high density residential in close proximity, which is exactly what this project is delivering. So I mean, after having said that, I'm not sure how else, you know, to specifically address the letters of opposition that have been presented, other than, you know, state that this is a continuation of a substantial investment that Jacob E. Living has made into this area of Ripon. They're obviously vested. They have a substantial investment. There's no way that they're going to do anything within their power that would have an adverse impact on the community, the development that they've built on the property that's in close proximity to them. Okay. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you for allowing us to speak, and we hope that you can make the findings that are presented to you and allow this project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And please don't go away, because we'd like to have an opportunity for the commissioners to ask questions. Commissioners, questions?
No, I think that John and the group has made has done a great job representing the client and the applicant, and our condolences to the applicant. Fortunately, he's been very well represented here, so I don't think he's losing anything from not being here tonight. And I would say that what has been done on this property, these properties to this point, has been, the term wonderful was used. I think it has been. I think we had a lot of opposition to it. I think it was my first meeting as chairman that we had the big meeting on the commercial portion of this, and it was a little imposing to have all of these people showing up, but we made the right decision, I think, back then. I really do, and I like what has been accomplished on the site. So no, I just would jump in and say I think your client has been well represented here. We appreciate what's been done to this point, but I still have some reservations about, you know, and we'll have some discussion about moving forward.
Thank you, George. Any other questions for Mr. Anderson or his office staff?
Yeah, I'd also add just pretty much what George said. You know, this presentation, much more constructive than the last one. Not only the technology is actually at work this time too, but no, the report's very thorough. Yeah, I think John and his team, and Jordan and Mr. Warda as well. I mean, they've put together a good package and gives us, I think, everything we need to make a proper decision this evening.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioner West.
Yeah, I'd just like to say for the applicant, I think it's the ideal applicant that we want doing business in Ripon. As he said, he's local, and he's not just owning a business. His intentions are to operate that business too, which seems like exactly the type of thing we want. Is that the right business though for that area? I don't know. We're going to discuss that, but I really did like the applicant, and I really appreciate how well he was represented here tonight.
Very good.
And I will just also say that I appreciate John answering my questions. I think in my mind, it's a lot more clear how I can look at those two findings, understanding them from the perspective of what we have and what we're expected to do, and looking at the proper use of that area. So you did answer my questions well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of Mr. Anderson's office? Mr. Anderson or any individual in your office, is there anything else you wanted to say before we close the public hearing section?
I think at this point, we're good. I think we've been able to address the concerns that are there. I know last public hearing, there was questions regarding architecture of the canopy and whatnot that needed to be provided. There needed to be some assurances to address specifically the concerns raised by the police department. I think those have all been incorporated into the staff report, part of the public record. I think we're good. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. So we will now close the public portion of this and we will go to the commissioners. As before I close, any last questions of Mr. Anderson's office? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Jordan and Mike, appreciate your information. Okay, commissioners, time for discussion.
I'd like to start with reading this from the chief's letter. Okay, I want to stress that the project applicant has incorporated additional mitigation into the project and has been proactive in addressing our concerns. While this does not fully resolve the traffic safety and the possibility of increased crime with slower response time issues, I am appreciative of their efforts. It doesn't sound like the safety measures have been mitigated. It sounds like they were attempted to be mitigated, but it sounds like there's still a risk there and there's still a concern there. That's how I read that.
I would definitely agree on the traffic issue. I know there's going to be cameras and security and so forth there. That intersection is a problem intersection. I walk through there early in the morning and I drive through there later in the day, and it's a terrible intersection. I'm going to challenge the city to make it a true four-way stop instead of a stop about. We don't have to have traffic lights. Just get rid of that roundabout and make it a true four-way stop. So, but that, I digress. So I know that's not what we're deciding tonight, but I don't think we're going to solve the traffic issues until the city does something about that intersection.
I have a question, and I don't know if it, Ken or maybe even for Tom, backing up a little bit on some of the earlier discussion. I think it was maybe Mr. Ward that brought up the previously submitted and passed conceptual plan based on previous commissions and councils, the terms of the development agreement, saying that in the statement that this was a permitted use on the property already. And I don't see an obligation to previous councils and commissions legally. I don't know if there is one though, based on what's been approved in the past. And do we have any responsibility to that?
Yeah, sure. Maybe Tom can address that question. I think he's prepared to address that for you guys.
So if I understand the question, it is what responsibility does the city have vis-a-vis the older development agreement from 2016? Is that correct?
That would be correct. Yeah, I mean, I think it was Mr. Warder that presented that, this was presented conceptually, that the gas station was there. Does that obligate us in any way to what was already decided?
Now, both the development agreement and the zoning ordinance contemplate that a gas station could be permitted on a site that's zoned C1. And the kind of the unique feature of Ripon's code is that a use can be shown as a permitted use on our zoning code or even included in a development agreement as such, but still require site plan approval. And that's really what the commission is here to do tonight, is to rule on a site plan approval application, not to relitigate the zoning, not to re-examine the development agreement. Those stand on their own. But there is a site plan approval process that the commission is activated upon, and that's what you're doing tonight. So if the commission votes in favor, that's one thing. If the commission votes against, that doesn't change the underlying zoning or the general plan designation or the fact that there's a development agreement on this site. All of those things are still going to be true, and the applicant can still come back with a different site plan or a different use, and that would be governed on its own merits, decided on its own merits at that time. So as to the concept that there may be, if there's a conflict between the DA and the zoning ordinance, the DA controls. That's a somewhat technical legal argument. I appreciate Mr. Ward's point of view on it. I don't necessarily agree, because I don't believe there is a conflict between the development agreement and our zoning ordinance. I think they can be read together, and I think this process is entirely appropriate given the way our ordinance is structured.
Thanks for that, Tom. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Tom? Tom, any additional input you would like to give?
There was one other comment made about the findings being almost exactly the same. They're really not exactly the same. They're substantially different, and the findings that were made at the time the development agreement was approved were much more general in nature, consistent with the general plan as a whole, et cetera. These findings are unique to the site plan approval process, and they must be made, all of the findings must be made in the affirmative in order to move forward with the project. Having said that, as I would be remiss if I don't say what Ken is probably already going to say, and that is that your staff report did recommend approval of this application, but obviously this is why we have a commission to independently weigh and independently evaluate the testimony and the evidence in front of them. And that's what you're here to do tonight.
Thank you, Tom. Anything else for Tom? All right, commissioners, back to discussion. Ken, would you mind putting up the slide of the findings?
As we're pulling that up, I just have one other question. Can you refresh my mind with what the hours of operation are? I know it's not a 24-hour operation, if I remember right.
I'm not certain the applicant has stated the hours of operation. They're just not approved to be open, but they are not approved to be open between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. with the approval that's in front of you this evening.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, further discussion?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot to add other than what's, was previously discussed at the last commission, and in my, opinion. Aesthetically, I mean, I think it appears to flow well with the overall project out there. I definitely commend Mr. Brenda on that project. I think we've all contested that project has been a big success. I've personally feel that. Gas station, from going, from Spring Creek area out Manly, if you're heading east, towards Escalon, Oakdale, Foothills, I mean, that's really your only option if there were to be one there. Otherwise, you got to head back into town or try to make it into Escalon or Oakdale. My last thing I just add is, it's something that James just mentioned, but, the previous gas station that this commission did approve, was for a developer who wasn't going to be present at the gas station. I think one of the big success factors that Chief of Police mentioned what's the Quick Stop? That's family owned and operated gas station, and they don't deal with any kind of riffraff or concerns there, and I think that's their success there, and I think that's going to be probably similar with this proposed development. Is we have a local property owner. This isn't a developer from outside the area, so I think he's going to. I would think if this is going to be in his backyard, he's going to make sure it's taken care of, and those safety issues. You're never going to get rid of all the safety issues. I mean, that's always going to be prevalent in this type of development. But I think that's going to be curtailed a little bit more with having a local owner and operator.
Thank you, Mike. Further commissioners' thoughts?
Sure. Again, love what they've done out there so far, and have been proud of what's been developed. My concern is in terms of findings, just goes back to public health and safety and the traffic out there. I don't live too far from there, but I'm not at that intersection often. We have testimony in the form of letters from a lot of people who are there often, and they see what's going on out there. Deb just mentioned the traffic out there. If this intersection were at its fully developed stage and signalized, probably not an issue. At least probably not in my mind, but it is an issue in my mind at its current state. And because of that, I just can't make the finding number 4, well, number 2 really, that the roadway, it has adequate utilities and roadway improvements. I don't think it has adequate roadway improvements, and I think that impacts number 4, and that it can be detrimental to the public health. So, I mean, I find that they can design it to great standards. It's amazing to me that Mr. Surla is fine with it going in that location right next to his restaurant. I think that's great. I think there's an awful lot of positives. No fault, in my opinion, to the developer, to the architecture, no fault to those people. I just find that right now I would have a real difficult time saying yes to additional traffic. The traffic study showed that was done in 2016, that was, I believe, the #1 contributor to trip generation in that area would be the installation of the future gasoline station and convenience store. That will add more traffic, more than it looks like to me than the commercial development in the area in terms of one of those units and their contribution to the trips. It's either the #1 or the #2, depending on how I'm reading this thing. So with that in mind, I just can't make the finding at this point, personally myself. So I offer that to you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, George.
Yeah, I'll take a second to address anyone who's watching and all the people who wrote letters, and then also just for discussion with us. You know, like with the ones that say, you know, there's too many gas stations in Ripon, there's too many markets, you know, build something better. That's not something ethically or legally as commissioners that we have the power to do. It's not our decision on what we build at these locations. An investor comes in, wants to invest, and that's the opportunities that we have. And too many gas stations, as a human being and a resident, sure, maybe. But as a commissioner, everyone's entitled to free enterprise, right? That would be a way to term that, free enterprise. So that we have no grounds to deny a project based on this. But valid concerns that these people brought up, I do think our public safety with being right on that county line, I do think it is a stop and rob place. I think it's very easily accessible to rob and scoot out of town. And it was explained to us last time that creates a lot of complications with our police department, how they operate, being so close to that county line, pretty much right across the street. And then you've got, well, it's not very polite, but blightness. I'm so impressed with the commission before me that has planned and built that entire area with the developers all the way from Jacktone Road, from the housing to the Teresa. And then across the street, you have beautiful Mislin Park. You have our almond orchard right there. And then you have the new aesthetically looking houses right there. And I just don't think that gas pumps add anything positive to that. And then you have in favor of it, tax revenue. And, you know, now more than ever, tax revenue is important with what's going on with COVID, but is tax revenue worth making a lifelong commitment with a gas station that our residents clearly don't want? I mean, there's 70 letters. That's a lot of letters. And so it just doesn't fit. I think the applicant is perfect for our town, but I don't think this business fits in there. Not with what I've heard so far. It just doesn't aesthetically go. It's like trying to jam a puzzle piece in the wrong puzzle. It doesn't fit.
Thank you, James. My thoughts. So we've seen this project go from, I believe, 10 acres of proposed commercial, and then we agreed to the split to allow for high density residential. I think we've been very fair with this developer to allow that split and to go with the lower portion and allow them to accelerate the build out of that property. I'm in agreement with everything I said. I love what I see out there. I love the apartments. I love the restaurant row. They've done a wonderful job of adding to the value of Ripon and making it a nice place for those neighbors. My concern, as is several of the others, is the safety. We have a stopabout out there. It's possibly the only one I'm aware of in existence in the state of California. And we've had a significant amount of people who have said they have safety issues. One of these letters says that she's actually almost gotten hit in the crosswalk. I have a lot of experience when I lived in the Caribbean for 2 years with roundabouts. You look to try and get in, and then you look the other way. It can be fast paced. I'm concerned that our stopabout is not adequate for the intensity of traffic that's going to come into this area. So I love Mr. Anderson's office. I love the projects they bought before us. I really like what JKB Builders has said, but I am in agreement with what you've said that there's safety issues here. So, other commissioners' thoughts? Okay. Well, it's time to make motions.
I make a motion that we deny the project.
Okay, now, if we make a motion to deny the project, I'm going to ask that you point out what findings
Okay.
that you're going to deny it on.
Yeah.
Please be specific with your findings. And then we're going to do a roll call vote instead of a push button vote. And any commissioner that seconds it or votes on that way, I would just ask you to say which finding, they're right up here on the board, you disagree with. So James, would you like to continue with that motion, or would you like to have somebody else?
No, it's me.
Okay, good. So what findings? You can just give us by number, please.
I would go with number 2. Kind of number 3. And number 4. Do you need specifics, or is that well enough?
That's good enough. Thank you,
Okay.
James. All right, I have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second on this motion?
I would second that.
Okay, George. And would you like to state which findings?
Based on 2 and 4?
2 and 4?
3.
Okay, 2 and 4. Okay, excellent. So we now have a motion and we have a second. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. We already have both George and James weighing in. Ladies first.
As much as I'd like to approve this, I'm also going to agree with the decline, the no vote, based on 2 and 4. Until the city does something with that intersection, I cannot agree.
Okay, and Mike?
No.
No, okay. Any findings that you'd like to cite?
No.
Okay, very good. I am also a no vote, and I will also go with 2 and 4. James, you made the motion. Your vote is?
Well, I made a motion to deny the project, so isn't that a yes?
Not yet. You get to vote after the motion's on the floor, so give us a yes or a no.
Commissioner Collins, I apologize. You confused me with that.
Oh,
My vote was in opposition of what was being motioned.
okay. So you are voting, okay, in opposition to this. Okay, excellent. Did you get that corrected in the minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good. So voting on the motion that you made, your vote is yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And we already have the sections. George, you, okay. And your vote is yes. All right. So we have concluded the roll call vote. The motion to deny the project is approved by a vote of 4 to 1.
Mr. Collins, what was your vote
My vote is no.
based on?
Findings 2 and 4.
Well, it's actually yes, right?
Oh, yes. 2 and 4. Thank you.
Double negatives.
Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you to the commission. Thank you to Ken for all the time we spent on this. Thank you to Mr. Anderson's office. We continue to love the projects we see, and they make an impact in our community. As I look at how many people from town go down to this area and go to the restaurants there, you guys did a beautiful job, and we know we're going to see more from you. Tom, thank you. Appreciate it. And to all of the people who wrote in to the Planning Commission, as James mentioned, we don't always get to say, I like it, I don't like it. It's not a popularity contest. We have to adhere to federal, state, and property laws. And so there are certain things that govern our decisions that people may not always understand. But it's important for us to follow all of those so that the development of Ripon can be done in a safe way. I would also just briefly close with the fact that Ripon is a slow growth town. And we're committed to that. Our city staff is committed to that, and our planning department is committed to that, and the city council is committed to that. There's a lot of good left in Ripon, and I don't expect it to change too quickly. Commissioner, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think we need to make sure the applicant knows that they can appeal this to the city council, correct?
Okay, and that was stated earlier on. So, very good. So we will go ahead and close that item. And I will turn it over to Ken for commissioners' reports.
I don't have a lot to report this evening, so I do want to thank the commissioners for agreeing to meet on a special evening. There was some conflicts with the regular scheduled meeting on, which would have been last Monday. So I do thank you for coming in for this special meeting. We will have a couple items coming up in October, and we'll be releasing those to you once we get those, and that's about all I've got.
Okay, commissioners, any other reports?
No.
All right, thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, technical people.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you guys did great.
I got it all right.
I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say
I
yes.
really did too, but